Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Stage Racing Podcast. We got a full one today. We're recapping the Daytona 500. We're going to talk about what was just a completely just slam-packed weekend for motor racing, specifically NASCAR. And then we're going to get into a few extra things today. So thank you for joining. All right, as always, Adam Pace here, joined by my co-host Cody St. John. Cody, you doing all right tonight, man?
Doing good, doing good. What a
Good, good.
what a weekend.
Dude, what a weekend. What a weekend. And we got a little special guest with us today, too. Just if you could summarize the weekend kind of in, just a few sentences or so, let us know your thoughts of the weekend as John Gruden. For those of y'all who don't know, Cody does a great John Gruden impression. So go ahead, Coach.
I'll tell you what, man. That Daytona 500 that was a slobber knocker, man. There was a lot of accidents, a lot of fast cars, and a lot of dumbasses, man. Excuse the language for anybody at home.
Give it to me.
I'll tell you what, man. If you guys like that Daytona 500, knock on wood if you're with me.
Right there. I got you. You got to finish it the right way. If you're doing Gruden, you got to knock on wood, man. There's no other way. There's no other way to do it. Hey, look, so just want to bring a little comedy to it here to get things started because we got a lot to talk about and a lot of serious things, too. So let's drop the green flag, man. Let's get after it here. Stage one, let's start with the duels. I know both of us were a little limited on how much we could watch the first duel. Bubba Wallace brings the victory there. I thought it was a pretty good duel. You saw some good cars. Had some guys having a race in there. I'm sure you were feeling a little nervous with Allgaier getting in there. So he was your dark horse pick, but he gets in there. Never in doubt. Never in doubt. Any thoughts on the first duel from you?
Nah, just based on our kind of the first episode, just happy for Bubba to get that win at Daytona and just really kind of kick off the year right for him. And regardless, it was a duel, so I think just getting a win in general is probably good for him, and especially to finally see that that checkered flag at Daytona in any shape or form. I think
Sure.
it's probably big for his confidence moving forward in the season.
Yeah. Really cool too. I'm sure you saw the video him giving the trophy to Michael Jordan. That's pretty sweet. I mean, anytime you can hand a trophy to a guy who's won, that
Count
many
title.
that he's won, you know, yeah, just the GOAT. All right, we'll just settle that right here. We're 90s kids. You're not going to convince us otherwise. Michael Jordan's the GOAT. Just leave it at that. But the second duel, here's where things get interesting and a little controversial. The duel finishes. I cut my computer off because I was streaming it while I've been hooked on Forza here lately, playing that on the Xbox. So I was watching on the laptop. I see what I think is Eric Jones winning, only to find out when looking at my phone, it was actually Austin Cindric. Just wild, man. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely thought Eric Jones had won that thing too. Me and you were texting back and forth. I thought he had, had that one. It was super close. Um, I mean, kudos to Austin Cindric. I mean, he had a fast car. I mean, he even had one of the fastest cars that carried over into the 500.
Yeah,
So I mean, he got that illustrious dual win, I guess we want to say. I still think Eric Jones. They should have allowed to then race back to the
it
flag.
just it just kills me. We'll jump ahead a little bit here, and I told you they'll do that on Thursday, but I guarantee you they won't do it on Sunday. And I have thoughts for what they did do on Sunday, but you throw the yellow and call a caution for what happened Thursday when it was actually safer to race back to the finish line, and then you did what you did Sunday. Make it make sense. It is what it is, I guess. We're just beating a dead horse at this point.
That's right.
Well, then things. I know on our list we have ARCA next, but let's kind of just continue with how things played out through the week. So we'll jump ahead to the trucks. The truck race Friday night. I don't know how much you got to catch at that. We thought it was Parker Kligerman who won, and he raced a almost perfect race there toward the end. And then come to find out he's DQ'd and Corey Heim is actually announced as the winner. Cody, I don't know about you. It just rubbed me the wrong way, man, because I could be wrong. And if I am, I'll eat it. But I'm pretty sure these trucks went through inspection and then were impounded because they never got to qualify because of the weather. So how do you pass inspection and then fail it at the end for your ride height being too low? There's just no way you can convince me you can lower your ride height like that when your truck's been impounded.
Yeah, and they actually had lost. I was reading today. They actually had lost a crew member earlier in the inspection process, and so I'm not sure. With having less, one less set of hands. Not sure if that had something to do with it in the grand scheme of things. I mean, they're appealing the inspection
The ruling it, yeah.
rulings. They're appealing that. I hope that they do get the appeal. Now we don't know many people to win appeals. It really in any sport, but more or less NASCAR for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm not expecting a lot, but hope they can win that because I mean the guy drove a fantastic race. It was a great win for him, and to have that taken away and that was just
He's just had it. I mean, that's he had the Xfinity race ripped out from him last year, and then this happens again. I mean, the dude, he's racing his tail off, man. His cup career didn't really go too well, but other than that, you can still tell he's a pretty talented driver. All things considered, it just kind of for him, I'm sure it had to suck. You celebrate this victory, and then you got to go back to work as a TV reporter the next day and find out, oh yeah, I actually didn't win this thing.
nope.
The other one that I looked today as I'm looking back on things, and I completely forgot this guy had joined the Truck Series full time. What about our guy Frankie Muniz getting a top 10 at Daytona? How about it, man?
Man, I tell you, I am here for it. I absolutely love it. I think, of course, like us as '90s kids, Malcolm in the Middle, so yeah, Frankie Muniz, man, that's a great story. I'm happy for the guy. I mean, what else can you say?
Dude, I mean, he's going to bring sponsorship with him, obviously. He's a celebrity. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure he made a pretty decent penny back in the day, even though he was a kid. Hopefully his parents didn't screw him over. I doubt they did. But he can drive, man. Like, he's worked his way up. He's come up through the ARCA series. Now he's in the Truck Series. Like, Muniz is pretty talented.
Yep, I like everything about him. And like I said, he puts on a good show. And he's, like you said, he's worked towards this. And so that makes it that much more for him and fans alike.
Sure, I think at some point he'll drive a Cup car. I don't know if he'll be full time, but we'll probably see him. I would be surprised if we didn't see him in the Daytona 500 someday. Just everything that surrounds who he is as a person and an actor. Aside from the race car driver, he's a phenomenal race car driver. But yeah, should be interesting to see how that goes. And like you said, not to show our age, but shout out to Malcolm in the Middle. So
that's right.
Oh man! Well then Saturday and Saturday for both of us it was hit or miss how much we actually got to watch. The ARCA race. Let's start there. I didn't get to watch the finish. Brendan Queen was your winner, but I did get to watch the first of it. And we're 16 laps into this thing, and the field's already cut in half because these guys have wrecked each other. I mean, it was just an absolute crap show, dude. I mean, I don't know if you've listened to Denny's podcast yet for this week. He said it best. Why are we putting such an inexperienced group of guys? And now some of them probably are good enough to be out there, but you look at the group as a whole, why are we putting them on Daytona? Running wide open, pack racing. It's dangerous, man. It
is. Be running short. If you want to put them on an intermediate, go ahead. But generally speaking, I'm all for just getting them off the super speedways. They don't need to be on there.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's fun to watch because it's a different car, but yeah, it was painful to watch beginning. I guess you want to see as many cars make it to the finish as possible, and you didn't get that at all with that one. Finally, though, that night we had the Xfinity race, and I was at a dinner with family. Had family in town visiting. I know you were down in Roanoke, but so I was watching, but kind of not watching. But it was a good Xfinity race, I will say that. And you and I have talked about this personally before. I don't know if we've mentioned it in the 2 episodes here. I think we both agree that the Xfinity package is the best package NASCAR has right now. I mean, hands down. And these guys, I mean, it just proved it Saturday night. And I did see, I don't know what the exact numbers for the ratings were, but I saw this as the best ratings that the Xfinity Series has gotten on the CW. and the production was fantastic. I mean, the little bit that I could hear, I mean, we saw what the screen was going to be. We talked about that in the first episode. It looked great during the race. I think all in all, to me, 10 out of 10 for the Xfinity race.
Yeah, I mean everything I've read about it was glowing reviews for the CW. So hopefully, that continues to go well. Went back, watched the highlights, like you said. Wasn't able to watch it, but I mean, great race. And it once again just proves what like you said, we've always talked about. The Xfinity package is far and beyond the best package in the entire NASCAR series.
Yep.
Let's find ways to make that happen in the
Well, I was looking for something on my phone there for moving on to stage two here. I wanted to bring up, but stage two here, we're going to sit around the actual race, the big show on Sunday. Started out, big ratings, president's there, big show, and then Mother Nature reminds everyone that she remains undefeated. And when I was trying to look up this stat, I think up until 2010 there hadn't been a single Daytona 500 postponed due to rain, and then it's what, like 7 since then or something like that. Were you the one who sent it to me?
I did. So from 1959 to 2011, there were 0 races postponed or pushed to late Sunday night due to rain for the Daytona 500. From 2012 to 2025, there have been 6.
That's wild. I mean, that's just nuts. I don't know how to explain it. Some people might say global warming. I don't know. Bad luck. I don't know. It worked for me. I got my wish. You didn't get yours. I got my wish. We ended up with a primetime race.
Yeah.
Hated that they, only got to run like 9 laps before it started raining. It was unfortunate. Yeah, and but I mean the crowd stuck around. I haven't seen the TV ratings for it. I imagine most people tuned back in. I mean the only other thing that was going on Sunday night was the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary. But even then, you could have watched a pretty decent amount of race and still got that in. So, yeah, the rain, man. It is what it is. Hopefully the weather's better this weekend. All right, Cody, I'll ask you this. Was it a good race, or was it an exciting finish?
It's a loaded question here. Do I think there were parts of the race that were great? For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, stage ones were all pretty good. They were all fairly clean. But of course everybody's saving fuel. But what we talked about, we texted during we talked about, once it got to about, that last segment and it got to about 25 to go. I remember us sending the text, saying, "Hey, here we go."
Here we go. Yep.
Racing the third stage wasn't all that great. I mean, sure, the finish was exciting. William Byron, Tyler Reddick, and of all people, Jimmy Johnson, make it through the top 3, through basically just making it through the accident. Was it luck? Was it skill? Was it talent? What was it? I mean, there's going to be a mixed bag of, which of those, which of those things.
Save that. We'll come back to that.
So, like I said, for me, it's a mixed bag. It was some really good racing there, and it was an exciting finish. But is it the finish that really NASCAR needs? And like you said, we'll get to that in another segment.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, Gluck's poll on Twitter, I said it was a good race. I hate that it's either good or bad. For me, is it great? Is it good? Is it okay? Is it bad? For me, it was okay. We're still, and this is the next thing we have on our notes here, they're still saving fuel, man. I mean, it's just like, one thing I saw is, why don't we just put them on the track and run 65 laps? Like, honestly, because that's all you really get is you're just saving fuel until then. No one's going to wreck before that unless they do something really, really stupid. And you almost saw one wreck. Denny had one heck of a save to keep one from coming. But other than that, man, it was just a fuel saving thing. I mean, we had the 3 wide that we like to see from time to time, but no one could pass. We'll talk about these cars some more, but it's just continuing to happen. Was it good? Yes. The finish was exciting. I like it better when they race to the line. Actually race to the line, not just come back to take the green on the way that they did. I think Denny summed it up best too when he said, don't make your moves till you get to off turn 4, man. At least see the line. Uh, but we can touch on that here in a few minutes. But yeah, I think the drama really ramped up in the last stage, especially with about 20 laps to go. We started noticing something. You and I started texting saying, well, what the heck is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. doing? I mean, the dude was weaving in and out of traffic like he had had about 12 beers at the local bar and was trying to beat the cops home. It was insane. I mean, we're both sitting there going, here it comes, here it comes. So then with 15 laps to go, Ricky and Joey get in a little tussle. So that begs my question that I have for us to discuss. Was it Ricky or was it Joey?
I mean, for me, I think both of them are at fault. I think it was more so Ricky than Joey. If you go back and watch the tape, they had a huge run on Ricky. And he
Yeah,
tried
and don't just and let me add to that when you talk about the tape, don't just watch that lap. Watch 2 or 3 leading up to it.
to watch 5 leading up to it.
Yeah.
Like you said, we texted at 20 saying it was coming. I mean, and if it wasn't for him, that line doesn't even get back up there. So, I mean, I'll give Ricky his due there. He was very aggressive to get that
Hmm.
line back to where any of those guys even had a shot. So, but at the same time, they get a run. He throws a block that he had no business throwing. He lucked up. Joey let off, and
I
then
think he kind of gave him a warning
I
shot.
did. And I think next thing you know, Joey's like, you know what? He's going to make another block. I'm going to put it where, only I could put it. And Joey being Joey, he did that. And like I said, I think both of them are at fault for this. Of course, Joey doesn't think he was. He thinks it's all Ricky. And I never saw Ricky's comments after the race.
He didn't really. I mean, he didn't really say much. To me, I think he knew he was at fault. Just what I got off of his interview, he wasn't mad at Joey. The biggest person who's mad at Joey was Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
Uh, Kyle was ticked, man.
Kyle,
I mean,
Kyle, Jeff Gordon.
yeah. I mean, it's just, and I get where Kyle's coming from. You can see both sides of the argument, right? But for me and you, we were seeing it coming. I mean, Joey went down there, Ricky tried to block, and it was there, but then he pulled off. Like he pulled off the block, and then he just went back. I don't know. I mean, I've never drove a car 200 miles an hour besides on a simulator. It's easy for me to say it's different when you're sitting in it, right? But to me, when I felt that when he pulled in front of the first time, he had to feel himself get hit. Obviously, he moved up the track. Why the heck are you going back down, man? So,
Well, and Joey,
yeah,
if you go back and watch, Joey actually hit Kyle Busch. He
yeah.
hit Kyle Busch in the lower line too, and kind of worked his way back up, and then kind of tried to force himself, and the rest is history.
If I had to put a percentage on it, 60-40, Ricky.
I
I
could,
think that's fair. Yeah. So they get all that mess cleaned up. Then we get down to the last little bit. We end up with a green-white checker due to Mr. Cole Custer starting things. And this one we saw brewing too. Denny and Christopher Bell work their way up there. They split off. Teammates split. Cole Custer's pushing Christopher Bell. And the back end, man, I mean, it's just dancing. Bell's back end is dancing like crazy. And Custer's still just giving it to him, man. Like,
it's plow.
I mean, gosh, like at some point you got to lift. There was no point right then to push that hard. But he did. Bell spins out. And then that starts what we're saving for later. Ryan Priest goes for a joyride up into the air once again. It just was Cole Custer panicking.
Yeah, inexperienced. A lot of these guys, you know, this is what they're used to. You hear them after race, like, "Oh, I just spin it," basically.
Mhm.
"Oh, I just put it in there," like. And it's like you said a minute ago that Denny said on his podcast. You don't have to. You don't have to make your move on the back. Go back and you watch all the old tapes of Daytona 500s or even Victor Plate racing, super speedway races. Doesn't matter. Any of those guys that had the art, had the craft. We talked about this. They weren't making their moves until coming out of 4, or even
Yep.
entering, maybe entering 3 very, very so often, every so often, but majority of them coming out of 4 and working their way to the trial or back to the start finish line at Dayton.
Yep.
So, I definitely think he panicked. And I think he just thought, okay, if I don't make it now, then I'm not going to get a chance to win. It's either, checkers or wreckers. And, unfortunately, what, 75% of these guys are probably going to end up wreckers most of the time.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? 30 cars out of a 41 car field this weekend were involved in a wreck at some point. Actually, I think that number may even been higher, to be completely honest with you. But anyways, it's too much, man. It's too much, and we can blame Cole Custer for panicking, but I want to throw this stat out there: 77% of all cars. I saw this earlier tonight. It just blew my mind. Have started the Daytona 500 since, or 77% of the cars that have started the Daytona 500 since 2017 have crashed. Before 2017, there was never a Daytona 500 with over 30 cars involved in crashes. That has happened 6 times in the last 9 years. What the heck is going on? Yeah, we can blame these new cars, but this was happening before then, and the cars before this were much better on product on super speedways. So yeah, we have an issue with the cars, but we might have an issue with these drivers too, man. I think it's just so much pressure. Like they want it so bad, and it's like you said, they're too conditioned to think that someone's gonna be okay that they just go for it, checkers or wreckers. And Ryan Priest said it. We'll talk about it. We're knocking on a door, a very bad door that's gonna open at some point, and we don't want it to open. I mean, look, in 2020, I thought the door had opened with Ryan Newman. I mean, just scared the crap out of everyone. And then here we are. Something's got to change.
100%. Someone's got to. I just, you know, like you said, that's an insane statistic, and I think at some point NASCAR's got to step in and start policing these guys a little bit and hold it. Let's have a level of accountability. And
Mm.
I want to say this. This is something we don't talk about enough. And I remember owners and drivers vaguely talking about it back in the day, but talking about how expensive race cars are, and actually being somewhat fiscally responsible and understanding the cost of owning and operating a race team. You don't hear the drivers talk about it today. And
And they need to,
nobody.
because what's crazy is, and that brings us back to the whole lawsuit 2311, is they talk about how thin these profit margins are for these teams. I mean, yeah, the drivers are doing well. They're getting paid good salaries and endorsement deals and things like that. But the teams, man, talk about the teams, their profit margins, they're not very high. So like you said, at some point these owners got to step up and say, cut the crap, guys. Like,
Keep forking money out and losing my butt every week.
yeah, yep. And the thing is too is with these new cars, you take the same car basically racetrack to racetrack. It's not like it used to be where you had a super speedway car, you had a short track car. So really, in the grand scheme of things, it might even be more expensive. Even though NASCAR's goal was to cut down on costs, it might even be more expensive when you look at it. Either way, I think I sent you one thing I saw that I like. I hate that it would come to this, but it was like a bonus, a monetary bonus for all the drivers who made it to the finish line without being in an accident.
Hey, I mean, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. You're right.
The more cars that we have clean at the end of a race, and I use clean with quotation around.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the more cars we got finished in a race, the better the product is.
100%.
And you cannot argue with me on that.
Nope. 100%. All right, so yeah, he spun Bell. That created the catastrophe. And then we go green, white, checkered. We on the white flag lap. And Denny gets makes a fantastic move around Cedric. One of the best moves I've seen in this new car. I mean, you'll say I'm biased saying that, but all honesty, it was a heck of a move. Now, the only problem with that is the 11 and the 2 got a little too far out in front of the pack. And so the pack caught up. Custer has some momentum. Well, he cuts to the outside. Briscoe, being the teammate that he is, sees the 11 and cuts it. And Custer, I think, panicked again and squeezed it, and that caused another big wreck that eventually led to William Byron winning the race. I don't know if you got anything else to add with that. It's just chill out, man. Take a breath. Let's see this thing through.
Yeah, I think he thinks if he loses that spot, he probably loses the chance entering 3 and coming out of 4.
No
Problem,
way. Someone would have gone with him.
the problem is, you lose your shot anyway. You
Yeah.
lost your
No,
shot
exactly.
and hey, I mean, kudos to William and like I said, Reddick, and get through that. And wasn't many people that got through that at the end. And
Mm-mm.
I mean, Willie B back to back.
So let's say that he was back to back. I think last year's win was solid. You consider this one legitimate? I mean, it does take some skill to navigate those races because he had some close calls along that, but I don't know. I don't think it's as crazy as Joey winning the championship last year, this past season and that. But it just makes you question it a little bit. It's like winners of the 500 these days aren't quite what they used to be. And not to take anything away from Willie B, talented driver. You can't deny that. But I mean, do you view this victory different than others?
Um, in some shapes or form, yeah. I mean, like I said earlier in the first segment, it's is it luck? Is it skill? Is it talent? Which one is it? And I think for William Byron and Tyler Reddick, I think there is skill and talent involved, but I think there's a lot of luck. And I mean, all respect to Jimmy Johnson, but Jimmy Johnson finished third in that race entirely 100%, and
Yeah.
all respect 7 times. But
But what's crazy though is he was running a good race. He just had a mishap on pit road, the last pit stop. That screwed his whole track position up. If that wouldn't have happened, he had a good car. I don't think we'll take anything away from the car that JJ had in this one. But like you said, him finishing third and where he was going down the backstretch to finish third, yeah, a little four
well,
leaf clover on that one.
here I watched his whole entire in car from like basically the last segment today, and I mean that man was next to last basically, and then got through all these accidents, which kudos to him. But you had all these accidents to manage to work your way up to that point. So, and I mean, of course, he's not the only one that benefited. So, I it would be a lot. This would be a lot different story if this was, I mean, Carson Hocevar, which of course me and you both would have hoped he would have won because we would have won.
Yeah, we would have took that one to the bank for sure.
But the grand scheme of things, we're if Carson Hocevar wins this race, um, it's a lot different conversation of legitimacy of this race.
Mhm.
And
100%. He ran dead last pretty much the whole race.
he did, and he had some technical issues, but yeah, I mean, so it's a lot different. So thankfully, William Byron's name and winning it last year and being in the playoffs and being in that 24 on a one of the best teams in the sport, it more so legitimizes this win a little bit more, a lot more than like I said if Carson Hocevar would have won it, and
Hmm.
that's just thankful that I'll.
Yeah, and Willie B just continues to be hot at the beginning of the year. I mean, he's if the dude can have this form in the fall,
Yeah,
man, he'd probably have like 3 championships right now. I think he's only been in the
like
Cup
5.
Series for 4 years or something like that. But seriously, I mean, he's hot to start the year. So
Hey, just something about that 24.
just something about that 24. Yeah, I know it. I know it. Anything else to add about the 500, man? Or are you ready to move it on?
So let's keep rolling.
All right. Well, final stage. Next week we go to Atlanta. They did this in the schedule last year, and for those of y'all who don't know, Atlanta a few years back changed the whole layout of the track. It's now a mile and a half, basically super speedway. They add progressive banking. These cars pretty much just run wide open now. Don't do that, man. You're gonna make me yawn too.
Okay.
Uh, what do you think? First of all, do you like the new track layout?
I do. I miss the old Atlanta too, but the racing since the new layout has been phenomenal. It's been great. I don't think we've really had a bad race since.
Hmm.
Um,
I would say it's one of the best on the schedule now. I'll go out there and say that.
I would agree with that. Of course, another speedway, so super speedway. So we're going to get some accidents, we're going to get things, but we'll get into this a little bit more. But it's somehow these guys can hang on here at Atlanta, but they can't hang on at a true super speedway. So but no, I do like it, and I think eventually over time, I think it's probably going to start to run a little more like the old Atlanta once the
Hmm.
the pavement starts really settling in and getting worn down and it starts
And
wearing.
that's already happened. I mean, they were talking about it
Yep.
last year.
Yep.
Um, I posed this question in our notes before this. I think this layout, and you tell me if you agree or not, fits these new cars better than most super speedways. I don't know. I mean, last year we had the closest finish ever in NASCAR history, stock car history for that matter. But even then, like the years before, I mean, dude, the racing was just fantastic. They're coming, they're going 2 wide, 3 wide. They're not 3 wide very often because it's narrower. Do you think it being narrow and only a mile and a half, do you think that's why it fits these new cars better?
I do. I mean, we've seen it with this car in the mile and a halves. And if, that's the one thing we used to be able to say. This hits it out of the park, and I think Atlanta is now for that, and the product we want to see week in week out.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, in a way, I miss the old Atlanta. I think if I missed anything, it's the old Atlanta. The original Atlanta.
Hot
Um,
surface, car
Hot,
slide.
slick, and you didn't have that little tri-oval, at the start finish line. But I really like this, and I mean, heck, even my uncle have sat around talking about like we would love to go to Atlanta. And before that, I never had any desire to go to that track. Now I'm like, man, that would be a fun trip.
Yeah,
It would be a fun trip. Well, I'm going to ask this question. Honestly, I think it's rhetorical, but do you think we can top last year's finish to this race?
I don't think so.
No, I don't either, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the three drivers who created that memorable moment are the reason why it was memorable. Because they weren't stupid. Say what you want to about Daniel Suarez, but Ryan Blaney's a fantastic driver. Kyle Busch, obviously, that speaks for itself. Suarez he's a good driver. He's smart with the way he drives, and because it was those three guys, we got the best finish ever, or the closest finish ever. Whether you think it's the best or not, I don't know, but yeah, I don't think we can top it. But even then, I mean, put three other guys in that situation. I don't think so. Let's just think about this for a second. What if you put Cole Custer, Joey Logano, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in that situation?
They are wrecking coming out of four. They ain't
They
holding
don't
on.
even make it to four. They're wrecking going into one.
You're probably right. The whole field doesn't make it back either. So, especially with a three wide racing that goes on in Atlanta now,
Yeah.
the whole field's done. I mean, so there's no telling who would even make it back. So,
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't want to be talking about that next week.
no,
I want to talk about a good race.
I want to talk about an exciting, super exciting, legitimate finish. I want to talk
Hmm.
about great racing. Um, you know, I want to talk about Atlanta. That's what I want to talk.
I agree. All right, man. Well, we're going to start a new segment tonight. We decided we want to introduce, maybe not necessarily on a week to week basis, but when it calls for it. And this week it calls for it. So we're going to overtime. All right. So we're going to a green white checkered here. And our topic is this: it's beyond time to have a safety conversation about these cars. I mean, it's beyond time. You've basically, for people who don't know, these new cars, the whole goal behind this was to make them safer, and yet I think we've taken 2 steps back. I mean, Kurt Busch, his career finished because of these cars with concussions. You've seen other drivers miss because of concussions. We've now seen these cars get in the air way more than I think we ever did on these other ones. If you look at the same sample size when they introduced them into the fold, I mean, I can't remember cars getting this airborne unless you take me back to the old COTs with the wing on the back, and even then I might argue these are a little more susceptible to getting airborne than those.
Yeah, and I don't think they're. I don't know if they're even quite as. I don't know if the COTs were quite as violent as these are either. These are. When they're getting up, I mean, they're twisting and turning multiple times, flipping. And I think I heard. I don't know. I want to say I heard on the broadcast or something about. Maybe it was Clint saying that. You know, he noticed like one of the flaps or something wasn't flapping up to try to keep that car on the ground. So is it a an aerodynamic engineering issue with that? Is it
Yeah, I want to see. I don't think it is. I should have grabbed it. One of my son's diecast
uh,
around here. He has some new ones. I was going to explain it for people who don't know because you're talking about these arrows. These new cars, the bottom of them are just as flat and smooth as you can be. And then they add those air diffusers on the back, which are basically like three pockets that the air can come through. And we've blamed these air diffusers for a lot of things. Start super speedways, work your way to short tracks. But it's basically what they've created is an airplane wing, really, essentially. And so then you're going to act shocked when you've got something traveling 185, 190 miles an hour, and it just gets a little unlevel, and the air gets disruptive, and it takes off.
Yeah, I think the bottom of the car, in my opinion, is the absolute worst part of it. I think it's probably the easiest culprit to point towards of saying why these cars are taking off, because of that flat, sleek bottom. Because before, when they were open and that air could disperse underneath the car, so I
It
think
took something violent to get them airborne before.
it did. It
It took
did.
something real violent. And if you think about it, I mean, think about to the first year that these cars came through. That's when Logano went airborne and almost landed on Bubba Wallace's roof. I mean, he did tap it. I mean, it was like a red flag right there. I can remember thinking back the year before they went live with these cars. So 2021, if I'm not mistaken, was at the fall race in Martinsville. Got lucky enough to get sweet tickets for the whole weekend. The guy who gave those tickets was just talking with him about it, and we're talking about the new cars, and he's like, I'm be honest, I'm nervous. He's like, you read all these things about the safety tests, they're not passing these safety tests on these super speedways. So he knew about it. He's just a little above casual fan. What the heck are they doing in Charlotte, man? Like, it's become. Denny said it best. It's becoming more and more about entertainment. They're trying to turn it into WWE of NASCAR. No offense to my friends and everybody who watch WWE, but they'll admit that it's pure entertainment instead of just make it about skill and make it safe, man. I hate to say it. I said it earlier. We're knocking on a door. It's going to open, and it's not going to be good. It's
Yeah.
not going to be good. We both remember what happened the last time that door opened. It's not good, man.
Massive changes for the entire sport, and I don't, and
It shouldn't
don't.
take that.
You're right, and you don't ever want to see it have to take something like that for NASCAR to get off their butt and change something. And it's not like we don't live in an analytical era of all of our sports where they don't have the data or can't even get the data to
Hmm.
be able to see that, like you said, we're knocking on a door that we're not going to be able to close after something happens.
Yep.
And it's going to be somebody's brother, somebody's husband, father, and personally, me as a fan, I don't want to see that. I don't think any.
No, and look, I don't know if you saw Priest's post race interview at the TV. I mean, we both saw the in car camera when he goes airborne. You just see his eyes, and then he just kind of tucks like that. And he talked about the only thing he could think of was his daughter. Look, you and I both fathers to little baby girls. On top of that, man, that cuts you because it's just like you understand it, you get it, and I think he's fed up. He's tired of it. Honestly, he's kind of been the sacrificial lamb, unfortunately, for these new cars. But airborne stuff aside, he hit the ground so hard and so flat. It's a wonder he walked away. I mean, forget the fact of being alive, the fact that he actually got out of the car and walked without messing up something in his back. It still won't surprise me if we see something on Twitter here the next couple of days saying that he's not racing this weekend. It
Well, I mean, not even talk about flipping and getting airborne, but you know we go back to the hit that Denny took in Richmond, with the whole Austin Dillon saga last. You the G forces off of that when they
mm,
put our data was harder than one of the any some of the more violent accidents we've ever had in the sport. And it's like, okay, why is that though? Like, why is this car? He even said today that he took a hard lick in the 500, right there at the end. I can't remember what driver it was, but they came up the track and hit him right in the front left quarter panel.
mhm.
And he was talking about today he was getting his wrist checked out. So,
They
and
don't. They did a good job of making these cars where they can take a little bit of damage and keep going. The flip side to that is the impacts are much harder than they ever were.
they are. And and we've had. I mean, I vaguely, don't quote me on this, but I want to say that we've had quite a few of more drivers actually come out with
Have we? I'm
back.
just sitting here thinking too. Have we had a season since they went live where a driver has not missed at least one race because of because of an injury while in the car?
I don't think so, and that never. I mean, granted, I get it's a different time, and more people are taking their health
Maybe
as a concern, but
maybe last year, but the year before it was Alex Bowman. Um, you had Kurt Busch in the first year. And there's been some others.
yeah,
I don't know, man. My next question on here is, can we just get rid of them? I think most people would say, yeah, we can, but we both know that's not going to happen. And NASCAR's too stubborn. So then my follow up is, how do we fix them? All right, the car of tomorrow, back in the day, it took them what, 2 seasons to fix that, to get off of that. We're in year 4 now of these new cars. Like, they're working on them, but it's so slow. And it's like, at what point, man, you hear every single driver when they talk about these new cars, what's the first thing they say that needs to go? The air diffusers underneath. That's the first thing. Whether we're talking short tracks, super speedways, they say it's the first thing that needs to go. Why the heck will we just not get rid of them?
I, how long did it take them to try a new tire?
Right.
I mean, so I really don't know. The powers that may be are making the decisions that they want to make when they want to make them, and it's unfortunate that the drivers, have to literally just put up with it week in week out, and because they know if they don't, then I mean they're not there's no product put out there.
I mean, it's their job at
Yeah,
the end of the day, and I don't think they get enough. I mean, I think most people think it would be really cool to be a race car driver. Heck, I'd love it. Strap me up. I don't care. But at the end of the day, I mean, these guys aren't joking. We've taken it for granted over the years that they're going to get out of the cars. They're going to be okay. But man, that chance I think is bigger that they don't get out of the cars now than it was before we introduced these new cars.
yeah.
It's scary.
It's almost like we've gone backwards,
We have.
and it's just really unfortunate. And it's dangerous. So yeah, NASCAR's married to these things, and I think they're literally going to die on this hill. And
Come on, Michael Jordan. That's all I can say.
we've been talking about it, and we're going to continue to talk about it. Um, we there needs to be change. That's a much bigger conversation for a whole nother podcast. But yeah,
Well, I think that's good to end that conversation. Just one more thing, not on our notes here, but we talked about this last week. We said it's coming. It being Junior Motorsports in a Cup. Now nothing's broke, but you've seen some comments from Junior this week. I think it's just a matter of time. What do you think?
no, man, I think you're spot on. I think it's a matter of time before he decides to, I don't know, buy a charter, start racing his way in each week. I don't know what he's going to do, but I could see it. I think he'll get it. I think he's got the itch to get in another race this year, maybe another couple. I would not
Hmm.
be surprised if he tries Charlotte. Um,
For the 600,
yeah, I would
that
not be
would be cool.
surprised
That
if
would
he
be really
tries
cool.
that. Would not be surprised if if he tries Dega.
Could
Uh,
see that. I bet you I wouldn't be surprised if throwing a short track in there somewhere,
yeah,
be it Martinsville or Bristol.
I'd throw Martinsville or Bristol. Um, so yeah, I definitely think uh, you know that it's there. And I think he's going to try to make another run at something this year, if not a couple. Now that he's got that itch, and I'm hopeful within the next year or two. I'm hopeful that he ends up finding his way, whether that's a charter or whatever, and fielding a full time Cup team.
Yeah, I think he will, because I don't think sponsorship's lacking for him. Um, yeah, whether he expands it to as big as what he's expanded Xfinity Series, I mean, there's going to be some give or take, right? If he's going to go into Cup, he's probably going to cut back a little bit on the Xfinity, probably not much, because he has a big heart for that. But yeah, there's got to be some give or take. But yeah, it definitely exceeded his expectations. It always helps when you go out and run top 10. I mean, that car it held its own. I was impressed.
Yeah, I mean, old Gator out there, he was doing his thing and he stayed clean most of the day. He got, I think, in one accident near the end there, but, basically came out clean, a lot more cleaner than the other ones.
Yep. And
So
it sells, and he sells. I mean, he's the only dude
that's,
that doesn't have a cup car, and his team has a merch trailer at the track. I mean, heck, he's got you about ready to buy a shirt. I don't know if you did or not, but you texted me the other night. I'm like, do it,
I already
pull the
bought,
trigger, and
I
do it.
copped it. I
Yep,
copped it.
there you go.
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm all for it. Like I said, I wasn't a Junior fan growing up, and but I love who Junior is now and what he does and what he stands for the sport. And I mean, he's one of the biggest advocates for the sport. I mean, of course, but yeah, I think NASCAR's better when Junior's there. When
Hmm.
Kevin Earnhardt in NASCAR, it's better. And unfortunately, he's probably going to be the last one because he had girls. So Um,
I feel like I think what we're getting out of Junior is what we would have got out of DEI, um, if that whole situation just didn't crumble the way that it did.
yeah.
Um, well, I think that's a good place to stop, man. So, hey, everyone, we appreciate you tuning in once again. Hey, if you haven't yet, please subscribe on YouTube. Check it out. Watch us. Give us a like. Share it for us, man. Get the word out there for us. We're trying our best. We both work full-time jobs, so any extra sharing you can do would be great. As always, Cody, appreciate it. Buckle up. Got some winter weather headed our way tomorrow morning. So, excited for Atlanta this. I am excited for Atlanta. You know, we crapped on NASCAR pretty hard on this thing, but the Atlanta race gets the juices flowing a little bit. It's been really good last few years.
This is where we're going to start. I think this is really where we're going to start taking off, and we're going to start putting the chips down and seeing who's really going to start coming out.
Yeah, usually after Daytona, you say the real season begins the next week, but since they're going to another super speedway, you could say it's like halfway started now. And then when they hit that West Coast swing after that, it really gets started. So, as always, everyone, my name's Adam Pace. Join my co-host Cody St. John. We appreciate the support. Have a good night.